Hey everybody, Hi Lord Tamerlane back with more obscurities and miniatures, and today I bring you not one box, but two boxes in fact, full of all kinds of stuff from Last Sword Miniatures. These are specifically from their Elven Lords Kickstarter, and we've got today the Albus Custodes and the Dragon Guard, two different units, 4 figures in each box, and a couple of stretch goal heroes, I believe, that DACA member, good friend of mine, Bob the Inquisitor, hooked me up with, so thanks Bob. Your secret identity will remain just that, secret. Let's get on to the good stuff, though. Okay, so this is one of the stretch goals. This is an elven totem or pillar. Scenery is always cool. And lots of teeny parts. This, I believe, comes with one of the hero models. Let's look at the actual infantry units. So if you're not familiar with Last Sword, they're a company out of Spain. They did some Bretonian-style peasantry knights, Reich Guard, I believe. I don't know what I'm talking about. Reich Guard sounds right. And they're elves, and they just had a pretty successful recent Kickstarter for Lizardmen as well. So they have what they call a plastic resin, I believe, and it's a little bit thicker and firmer than fine cast, but it's nowhere near as brittle as traditional resin. So these are our Custodes here. They're big giant swords. So this is kind of like Palace Guard, or I'm not sure what the High Elf equivalent is. I never really played elves or had much interest in them, but I did like their big fancy swords. So you have basically the arms, the scabbard, the blade, and the 2 shoulder pads attached. And then you have the, oh no, you're the hero. You were the guy who's supposed to have the 2 swords and a leg that we saw earlier. So if you're not familiar, they're nice clean casts. He's got his dragon scale cloak, which is pretty cool. Doesn't look like he's going to require a whole lot of cleanup. It's pretty obviously easy to discern his features there. That's what I'm looking for. The actual bodies of the Custodes here. So they have this kind of asymmetrical armor going on. I don't know if they all have the same bodies or not. Those 2 are the same. Are you the same as your friends here? Looks like it. I'm going to take a wild guess that all 4 are the same then. That's okay. These guys are perfect for skirmishing, and the fact that you get 4 in a box means you are good to go. I had their bases somewhere. I just stuck them off to the side. So, those were the Albus Custodes. I don't know who the guy on the cover is. I'm assuming those are leader parts. Maybe they're in there, maybe they're not. Alright, there we go. Let's move on to the Dragon Guard. I guess this would be like a unmounted version of the Dragon Princes. So the thing that really stuck out to me with these guys was their helmets. Really like the helmet design. Fancy dragon themed axes. And here we have another of the hero models. And no, that is not, that's just flash there on his blade. I'm surprised he's one piece. I believe he was a Custodes hero. He's the blind sword master there. Just out of curiosity. Yeah. So they do have very similar, if not exact same swords. But they were all 3D sculpted, so that's not that unsurprising. Alright, so again, much like our Custodes friends, the Dragon Guard have a similarly themed head, set of arms, and actually, surprisingly, different axes. I drop one there. Okay, let's see. So, their bodies actually consist of, well, more symmetrical than the Custodes at least, but mailed armor. And they have the kind of dragon scale motif going on there. And are my suspicions correct? I'm pretty sure they're all going to have the same body as well. Looks like it. Actually, it looks like their feet are in a variety of poses, but that's not a big deal. The last thing that we're going to have are all of their capes, because what kind of dragon prince would they be if they did not have their dragon scale cloaks? And at least these three. Oh, no. I'm going to have the odd man out. I'm curious if there's going to make any difference in how they go together between the left and the right flowing capes. Probably not, but something to watch out for, I guess. So I'm going to go grab some glue and some clippers and put these guys together and see how they stack up. And hopefully I can find some actual elf models, because I know I own like 2. We'll see how they compare to them, okay? And voila! We have our Dragon Guard models at least all built up. So we have our GW guy here, just to get a good sense of scale, because I don't own any actual elf models, other than some weedy mantic ones, and nobody wants to see those. So they do scale, at least with Games Workshop's humans, and I'm assuming with the elves, but I don't own any elves, and I don't really want to either, because they're elves after all. But these guys are pretty cool. They look a lot like the Dragon Princes, but obviously they're not on horseback. So the parts all fit together pretty well, and what's nice is the arms were actually kind of keyed in, so it was pretty smooth business getting everything put together. One thing that bears mentioning is this resin that these guys are made out of is just crazy flexible. I mean, it's really flexible to the fact that I've never actually worked with a material like this in terms of resin. I mean, I just didn't care. It's just going nuts. It's really bendy. And I guess that's a good thing, and I just now realized I really need to trim off the end of that axe thing he's got. One problem I had and thing that I didn't like, if I can get my grammar correct here, is the head pegs were way too thick and they were way too long, so I had to trim those down, except this guy, I forgot to do that on. This is like the unit commander who doesn't bother wearing a helmet, I guess. That's always the case, isn't it? So these were their Dragon Guard. I guess one other mild criticism is the fact that, for the most part, and I know they sell them in larger groups, but Last Sword Miniatures always tends to have their units in groups of 4. Why groups of 4? I don't know. I don't know what the significance of that is. So I grabbed one of their other elf linemen. I had one laying around just so you guys can see. I mean, they're really nicely scaled. These aren't the bases they came with. I forget the manufacturer of these. It's a one-man show, and they're all 25mm, but he makes cobblestone bases and kind of techie, mesh grill type Sedition Wars, Necromunda looking bases, but I don't really use those on 25mm, but they are plastic. If I can remember, I'll put it down there in the description, because they're pretty reasonably priced, or if any of you guys know who I'm talking about, put it in the comments so others can discover getting cheap, nice plastic bases that don't come from China necessarily, that are manufactured in the US. So next up, as I ramble, is their Albus, I want to say Albertus, no, I think it's Albus Custodes, the custodian models. I'm guessing these are like the swordsman stand-in for GW kits. I don't know. They've got really long swords, but look at this. I mean, have you seen resin that you can do that with? Whee! Yeah. So, it is an interesting take. They went together really well. I was really worried, and I have a fear of two-handed weapons with arms that are separate from the hands, because it inevitably I end up gluing my fingers together, but these guys actually went together pretty smoothly. I don't actually know who the unit leader is. I think it's this dude who's got this weird thing going on with his hands there. I'm not sure what that was all about, but I think I might have put his hands on wrong. I do like the fact that they actually carry their scabbards with them, and I'm assuming they go on their back because that's where I put them. It didn't really seem like there was anywhere else to stick them. Finally, I also have the 2, which I think were the standout models, and that was the hero models that went with those units. So obviously here's our Custodes. If you can't tell, he does have the same armor as the Custodes, the blind swords master, who's so awesome with a blade that he blinded himself. And he's got his cool kung fu pose going on. He was actually one solid piece, which was kind of nice. And then we have our Dragon Guard. I want to say he's like a Dragon Prince, and I really like this guy. He's got like these clawed boots on, foot armor, and very ornate armor, even more so than the regular Dragon Guard. He is very elaborately dressed. I don't know what color I'm going to paint his armor, and I do like his... Anytime you got a guy with 2 swords is already cool in my book. So this guy... I'm halfway tempted to paint him up like Drizzt or something, make him all dark elf, but no. These guys, unfortunately, with their legs splayed out a bit wider are going to be a challenge finding an actual base for them that matches up with the rest. He can kind of sort of fit on a 25mm, but our Custodes friend here, I don't like the feet hanging off the edge of the base like that. Overall, I think if you're going to go with any kind of an Elven skirmish force, I don't know what you're going to use them in, but there's always, you know, a necessity for cool-looking elves that are ready for battle. With the hero characters, I think it was a pretty nice deal. The shipping was reasonable for a unit of 4. It wasn't overpriced. It was definitely a better deal the more you ordered. But, you know, that always seems to be the case, especially with smaller publishers. Last Sword also has their Lizardmen that should be going up on pre-order soon, and it looks like the next thing on the block for them is going to be Undead models, so that'll be interesting to see. Hopefully they're going to put their own little magic touch on them. I do feel that these are somewhat unique, especially with the role that they would fill. Obviously, they're influenced by the Warhammer fantasy stuff, but they're not exact one-to-one duplicates, so that's always nice to see. I'll probably find some kind of a use for them in skirmish games. I guess I can finally put together a fancy pants elf force, but at least they'll look good killing and hopefully not losing. So, these are again the Last Sword elves. They're Albetus Custodes, who I'm probably saying wrong again, and the Dragon Guard. I have a link below if you're interested in finding out any more about them. You can check out Last Sword's website. So once again, this is High Lord Tamberling with Obscurities and Miniatures saying thanks for watching and checking out our videos, and hopefully you'll stick around to see some of the other ones. See you later. Bye-bye.